Thank you, Henrik. Thank you guys for showing up so numerous. I think that's the time where I see most people here in this room, and that's the first time I stand here. So, both the premiere, I want to also say hello to all the people looking from the video. Today's topic is going to be on self-esteem. It's a topic I'm very, very passionate about. And why is that? So I want to tell you, I was thinking about how to go about this presentation, and I was thinking about telling a lot of personal examples or personal stories I have. But I thought, okay, I have a lot of personal, like really intense stories about my low self-esteem, so we will discuss it later. But what I will share here in front of the camera is kind of like how my self-esteem evolved during my life and what did I do to afterwards erase it. So if we see this graph, I'm a scientician. I study food science, so I always like to have like a graph and not just words and numbers. So it's my age. I'm turning 28 soon, and like this is the self-esteem from 0 to 10. So what happened? When I was a child, my self-esteem was okay-ish. It was like about a 5. When I finished high school, I fell in love, and it was a terrible, terrible experience for me. So I kind of attached my self-esteem to that person, and what happened was my self-esteem was gradually sinking and sinking and sinking. So from age 18 to about age 19, 20, my self-esteem went to like about a 2. And that persisted for like 5 years. So what happened then? I read one book, another book, and the third book. And today I can proudly say I have a really good self-esteem. I'm really happy with my life. I love it to stand in front of you guys and just tell you my story and how I go about it. And so yeah, here I am. In my presentation I want to focus on 3 things on self-esteem. First on the why, second on the what, and third on the how. Why? Why is self-esteem important? My self-esteem, I was telling you about the third book. The third book I read is this one, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. This guy is an absolute crack on self-esteem. He has written over 15 books on self-esteem or related topics. Must have. So what does he say about self-esteem? From anxiety, depression, to underachievement at school or at work, to fear of intimacy, happiness or success, to alcohol or drug abuse, to spouse battering or child molestation, to codependency and sexual disorders, to passivity and chronic aimlessness, to suicide and crimes of violence. Apart from disturbances whose roots are biological, I cannot think of a single psychological problem that is not traceable, at least in part, to the problem of deficient self-esteem. Of all the judgments we pass in life, none is as important as the one we pass on ourselves. What does it mean? Basically, if we don't have an illness that has a biological reason, everything is traceable to self-esteem. So if this is true, and I truly believe it is true, we do have to be aware what self-esteem is in order to have a good life. And that's why I want to present you guys so I can share what self-esteem is. Good. That brings me to the next question. What is self-esteem? We have the self-esteem, basically our how to say, self-esteem is something that comes from inside. It is not something that comes from the outside, or you should attach from the outside, but it's something that comes from the inside. But contrary to what a lot of people think, it is not something that we feel. It is actually, and it's written in that book, it's something that we do. Self-esteem is very much attached to the actions we take, and it's kind of, you can think about, you all guys know that knowledge is important, but all the knowledge is not important if you don't apply the knowledge. It's kind of the same with self-esteem. to know what self-esteem is, to feel it, it's okay, but you have to apply it in order to really have a high self-esteem. How do you do that? And applying it means, basically it means just putting your self-esteem into action every single day. Every single day. And what kind of actions? There are precisely 6 actions. 6. And that's why it's called the 6 pillars of self-esteem that you can take daily in order to raise your self-esteem and contain it that as high. What are those 6 actions? Since we do it every day, it's also sort of a habit or a practice. So we're going to call it the 6 pillars. We're going to call this the 6 practices. So the first practice. I have a question. Do you guys want to go about, or for me that I write every single action first and then discuss every single action, or do you want to go one action after the other and then discuss like every single action? What do you think is better?
You are the boss. How you want?
How I want? Alright, let's go. Then we're gonna write one down and then just discuss it right away. Okay, the first practice is the practice of living I have to check the spelling. Living consciously, being aware. So you guys know how Tai Lopez says there are 3 types of people. Charlie, what are they?
Wait. People that just observe, people that take action, and people that wonder.
Exactly. People that watch what happens, people that make something happen, and people that wonder what happens. So living consciously is basically being not the last guy, not the guy that wonders what happens, but that at least you see what happens, because you take, like, your mind is all the time active. You see, okay, this is happening, this is happening. A lot of people just walk around and whatever, life is good or not, whatever, they don't even know if and what happens inside of them. The first practice is just to constantly raise your mind to a level where you can observe everything and observe a lot of things. Actually, the werewolf game is a good exercise to do it, so you can observe what happens. That's why I love the werewolf game in the beginning. So that is the first practice. I want to read you a very personal example also, because I have my biggest thing where I do not live consciously is my phone addiction, because I'm always on the phone, and then I'm always thinking, it's like, yeah, it's not too bad, but I'm making myself consciously right now that, hey, I'm too much on my phone, I have to get off of my phone. So I wanted to read you just a little bit what he says about addictions, because we all have some sort of addictions, and most of the people tell themselves, yeah, it's not too bad, it's whatever it is. So he writes this on addiction. The avoidance of consciousness is clearly evident in all problems of addiction. When we become addicted to alcohol or drugs, or for me to my cell phone, our destructive relationship, the implicit intention is invariably to ameliorate anxiety and pain, to escape awareness of one's core feelings of powerlessness and suffering. So this means that with our addictions, we always want to hide what is bad, and we always tell ourselves, like, we lie to ourselves. Our fudge factor is very high when we are addicted to something. The next practice, I went a little bit in depth on this practice because this is basically the most important. Because when you live aware, you all of a sudden think, hey, fuck, my self-esteem is not as high. So then everything starts. So the next one, we're kind of like just going a little bit through it. Next one. Can you read my writing?
Yes.
Self-responsibility. This basically means that we have to be aware that everything we choose or everything we do, we have to take responsibility. Basically, blaming not everyone else for everything that happens, but blaming ourselves, or at least looking at, okay, what could I have done differently in order to solve this conflict, or solve another problem, or just to have a better life. A lot of people blame each other, or like other people, or the system, or the economy. You have to take self-responsibility in order to achieve a high self-esteem. Next one is related. Self-acceptance. We're going to look after it on the how we raise our self-esteem, but I want to have a little sneak peek. Here in self-acceptance, there's a very, very good exercise to raise your acceptance level. And it is stand in front of the mirror 10 minutes naked every day for like 2 or 3 weeks. You guys are going to start seeing stuff on yourself, and like for me it's like here I have a little bit too much, and I don't know, I want to have like bigger breasts and stuff, but yeah, go lift a bit heavier. But what happens was, like when I was standing in front of the mirror, all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's not too bad. It's like, why do I do it? Why do I even do it? It's not the first time you stand in front of the mirror. It happens after like some days that you start to accept yourself. And if you don't do anything else, no more other practices, start with this 10-minute in front of the mirror practice for some days. It's quite fun, I can tell you guys. This one is a very interesting one. Self-assertiveness. Sich selbstsicher behaupten. I had to look it up what it's in German. Selbstsicher sein, Selbstbewusstsein. And when a lot of people talk on self-esteem, this is what they first think it is. But it's actually just one part of having a high self-esteem. When you're confident in yourself, that doesn't mean that you are have a good life, but that means that you can show, or in any conflict, stand up for yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to be an extrovert and just go loud and just be. You can be like, I'm a pretty heavy introvert, and every time I go out of myself, I don't feel uncomfortable, but I feel like I'd rather be an introvert. But when something happens, when there's a conflict, I can talk for myself and I can defend myself, and that is what here it's about. In any conflict, the people that are quiet and then afterwards are unhappy with the solution, those are the guys that kind of just live a life of low self-esteem. Henrik, what is your purpose in life?
My purpose is to give as much value as possible and to make this planet a better place.
That's exactly what this practice is about. You have to have a purpose in life, and you have to know what are the steps to make this purpose happen, and what are the actions I have to take. Otherwise, you would just be around, lost in life, and go here, so where. You remember the graph I showed where I was here in my self-esteem? During this time I changed my mind on what to study 17 times, and then I started one job and started the other job. So that's just not a purpose. Now I have a purpose and I know where I want to go. And exactly this kind of purpose that Henry told, I knew he was going to answer well. This wasn't discussed or anything. This is something that you should achieve or want to achieve in order to have a high self-esteem. And the last one. personal integrity. The single most, not shocking, but the single most time I was getting like Hühnerhaut when I was reading this book. How do you say Hühnerhaut in English?
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps, yes. Was when I saw this. I want to show it to you. You'll see it pretty quickly.
Lies do not work.
Yes. You just spoiled it for the others.
What is it? Wait, there is something. Wait.
I can tell today that I was a pretty heavy liar, especially to women. I'm not anymore today. And I was reading this chapter about personal integrity, and basically this guy was telling me why lies do not work. And this guy basically convinced me. It's like, hey, you're doing BS here. Like, you just go around the world and just lie to everyone. This is not good what you do. And also, this is a sign that someone has a really, really low self-esteem when he's lying everywhere and whatever. We're not talking about like necessary lies, or this is just a personal philosophy that I am adapting right now, that I just won't lie anymore just because I feel way better when I do not tell any lies and just go about it like that on the world. So yeah, those are the 6 practices. How do you do it? As I told you, for each practice there are some certain exercises that you can take, but the best exercises you can do is the sentence completion exercises, which works for every single practice. So if you don't know where to start, you can take basically, for example here, living consciously, and then you start to write. If I bring more consciousness today in my life, and start with a number, if I bring 5% more consciousness in my life today, what could happen? And then you start maybe thinking, okay, I could do a better job, or my wife has more attention, or my children get more attention. And then you start to, because you've written it down, you start your handwriting, you start to implement those actions in your life. And that's where you start acting. Remember, self-esteem is not necessarily something you feel, but something you do every single day. When you start writing what you want to achieve, you will start performing. So yeah, you have to know, if you want to raise your self-esteem, it's very, very hard work. For me, it was like a 3-year in progress. It's still in progress. And for me, I was thinking, when I read this book, I was thinking, where is my self-esteem now? And where do I want to go? And so, to end this presentation, I would like you guys to all think about something. Remember the graph? My self-esteem, I can say it's about an 8 today. And so I want every one of you guys to come in front of here and just to think for yourself, where is my self-esteem now? You can think, okay, do I live consciously? Do I live purposefully? Do I have personal integrity? Then do the math, okay, it's about here. You don't have to tell anyone, but I want you to write down where do you want to go with your self-esteem. And I'm starting. Obviously, I'm starting with this. I want my self-esteem in some near future to be a 10. And that's what I'm working here. This is what I'm achieving here in Social Zebras. You guys helped me all out. Thank you very much. And I invite you guys to come here and write down where do you want to achieve your self-esteem to be in, let's say, 1.5 years time. 18-month goals, right? Come here, come forward. The scale is 1 to 10, man. Okay. Yeah, I see some very high numbers, and I see some numbers that are maybe realistic, and whatever it is, I hope I could help you guys. Read this book, read some other books on self-esteem. You will not regret it in your life, trust me. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Amazing.
Yeah.